Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
All right, it's 5 days to the general election, 5 days before Nigerians head to the polls to elect their next president, the person who will be steering the wheel of the nation's vehicle for the next 4 years, at least for the first 4 years. And we hope you've gotten your PVCs and you're ready to participate in the election so that you don't end up whining and complaining for the next 4 years. And on that note, we welcome you to the show this morning. Morning Spring on Western Spring Television is what you're watching. This is where we bring it to you as it is when it drops from where it drops. My name is Emmanuel Ujadugele. I'm saying welcome to the program this morning, Monday the 20th of February 2023. It seems that February is the February's February to ever February in the history of February.
I've been expecting that.
All right, talk to me about that, David Okwe.
Thank you very much for joining us, Emmanuel. Thank you for being here. And thank you for joining us, viewers. It's Monday the 20th, as Emmanuel has said, and we have 5 days till the general elections. My name is Temitope Adejola. Thanks for joining us this morning on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television.
Oh, well, it seems that both of us are in very high spirits this morning. We're excited. I don't know why Temitope is excited. Before me, I'm excited because it's just 3 days before a king is born or a king was born.
Oh.
So if you know what that means, start preparing your gifts and all of that to bring to the man, the legend, the one and only Peace Out.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can follow us on all our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram at Western Spring Television, on Twitter at WSTV_NG. And of course, you can check out our YouTube channel, Western Spring Television, where you can catch up with past episodes of your favorite programs, and of course even watch us live on the program. Well, we'll be bringing you the papers this morning to tell you what is happening on the faces of the national dailies. We talk about a lot of interesting things have happened over the weekend, and we're expecting to see how the national dailies have put them for you. And we'll come back from this break. We'll bring you the papers to stay with us.
The history of guns is traced to China. The Chinese had developed a technology civilization that produced devices identified as guns at about 1000 AD. By the end of the 13th century, the devices had become true guns and described as metal barrel firearms that fired single projectiles which occluded the barrel. When did gun become an instrument of war? The first battles to be decided by firearms were between French and Spanish soldiers. The early 16th century warfare included Magnano in 1515, Bicocca in 1522, and Pavia in 1525. The wars were fought in Italy. The gun is a weapon of destruction and death, but humanity sees it as a potent instrument of family destruction. People with guns feel safer even if they don't display it. Western Spring Television identifies history of guns as a watershed event in history.
All right, viewers, thanks for staying with us. It's still the Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, and it's time for newspaper review. We're starting with a Punch newspaper this morning, and the banner headline says, APC governors, bank CEOs in last-minute rush declare Naira mess. And the riders, 12 governors, APC chair want Emefiele Malami to obey Supreme Court order. Naira crisis has brought so much pain, Adamu laments, Ganduje, Abiodun absent. Bank CEOs want old notes collection extended to avert protests. attacks on branches. Well, I could understand the fact that Naira crisis has brought so much pain, but the fact that some governors are lamenting, it baffles me, you know, Emmanuel.
Yes, a lot of persons actually have been asking what the motive is, what the rationale is behind the governors coming out to support, you know, to criticize the policy rather. And there have been so many theories about the governors, people saying that there was the ASU strike, the governors did not come out to talk, there was the fuel scarcity, that is still ongoing.
My
They didn't really
exactly.
write letters and all of that. Nobody was dragging the president by his non-existent bed. But this is the Naira policy now. And it seems that there's more to it. I think you were making that this morning, that remark this morning, that there's really more to it. There seems to be more to it than we know, both on the part of Godwin Emefiele, the central bank governor, and of course the governors themselves. Seems to be a battle of governors now and presidents. I feel that the governors have a reason for what they are doing. It seems that they've been the hardest hit by this policy, and I wonder why that is. You know, they don't run banks, they don't run money agents, as far as I know, for some of them. So you begin to wonder why exactly they are disaffected. I mean, they're saying they are clamoring for the good of the people, but the people themselves, in Kaduna, I saw some videos coming out from Kaduna saying that Verify is not the president has spoken and they will follow the president's directive. So definitely, even the people, you don't have all of them on your side. It means that there is something else. You know, all of those theories flying around may just have some elements of truth to them, but you cannot substantiate those claims.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's really, you know, intriguing to see the drama going on.
You see, my take on from all of these back and forth that we've been having before the elections is that this is an election of conflicts. You know, we have conflicting views on different things, on the Naira crisis, on the fuel scarcity, on everything.
Even in intra-party crisis.
And then it seems to also be an election of motives. People are having a lot of motives towards this election. I mean, the APC governors, this 12, they have their own motives. The federal government does have its own. The CBN also, on another side, has its motives. So people across board have their motives, and everyone is just serving his own interest as it is, really.
And worrisome, actually, is that it is surprising to see that governors who are notorious for disobeying court orders suddenly, I mean, two wrongs don't make it right, but these governors suddenly want the federal government, Emefiele and Malami, to obey the Supreme Court order because now it affects them. I mean, the evidence is there online of Nasser Rufai, you know, disobeying court orders. Wike doing the same. So many of these governors doing the same. A lot of these states are in huge judgment debts. You know, debts that have been awarded against them by competent courts of law, and they've not obeyed those what's it called now? Those orders. So now you people have seen that it could be painful if court orders are not obeyed. So now it's a battle of all these persons not having clean hands and then wanting to come to equity. That's why.
What makes it even more obvious is we have people who have been in the bandits' net for a while now, who have been kidnapped. Governors didn't rally themselves around to say, we need this person released within so and so period. Nothing like that has ever happened. I don't think it has. Only the talks, please release this person and all. No meetings. No meetings towards that end, to that end. And then you're having Naira crisis, and you're having, you know, governors rallying themselves around and instructing the federal government to obey the Supreme Court order. You know, all of this shows that they have, you know, where their interests lie, and it is not with the people. At all. It is not with the people at all. It's very obvious. Well, we wait to see how that will be resolved. It's just 5 days to the election. Let's see how that affects the election. All right, we move down to the bottom strip of the paper. Vote for leader with capacity, character, Oyedepo says. And I don't think there's any advice that Nigerians need more than this at this time. We need to vote our conscience. We need to vote capacity, very important
Good
now.
competence.
Vote competence and character. Really.
Yes,
So,
what remains to be seen is if we will take that advice. We are known to vote. I mean, Nigerians are known to be. It's only Nigerians I see who sees something really bad happening, and there's a choice to make. They make a choice that aggravates what's already bad, and then spend time complaining that it has gone from bad to worse. But you walked directly into it. There's been so many advice, so many pieces of advice, so many, admonitions.
Yes.
But what remains to be seen is along what lines do Nigerian votes?
and
Nigerians vote?
this has been, these candidates this particular time have been the most embattled.
Yes.
I mean, you talk with the people who have really analyzed them, broken their character down, their competence over the years. So you cannot say that you don't have an inkling
confused.
as to what they're bringing to the table.
Yes.
So you really need to know and make a choice if it's competence you want, or you're still going to vote along the lines of religion and ethnicity. Yes.
Right.
So really, so that's why I said that we need this advice. I mean, some sort of last-minute advice is from a father to children at this period, to vote capacity, to vote competence, to vote character, which is really important.
Well, that's that.
On to the next one. Ogun woman sets self ablaze over 70,000 naira debt. We've had this naira crisis really messing up with people. And the fact that you can't even feed. I was hearing a lot of stories over the weekend, people saying they can't feed. I even had a fish of something like that. I mean, someone walked up to me, was asking for as little as 100 naira. And he said he wanted to buy food. Yes. And I was even wondering, what would you buy with 100 naira?
I mean,
Really?
It's unfair.
Really
You can't even buy
worrisome.
pop-off. Pop-off is now 15 naira per
50 naira per one.
You
So you have two pieces.
Two very
400
small pieces to must say.
Exactly.
But sad that that woman set herself ablaze over 70,000 naira
Really?
debt. I don't know how she got into the debt. That reminds me of a young man who did the same thing last year somewhere around the Elisha garage. That was about 50,000 naira. He committed suicide, and they were searching for him for about 9 days before they eventually found the body. And I also think that we need to be more humane as people. I've seen the way some debtors treat their creditors.
I understand.
Let's not even talk about.
We could talk about the creditors then, but even now, everyone is having it bad, Emmanuel.
Yes, but
even creditors are having it bad.
The funny thing is, creditors can also be debtors sometimes. Life is not really straightforward.
Exactly.
It can happen to anybody at any time. So if you are in that position, you should be. The least you should be is understanding and kind. You can be firm without being condescending, without making people feel less of themselves. We hope that she finds rest. I don't know. We hope that she finds
family,
rest.
really.
And the family.
All right, Khan laments Leah Sharibu's continued captivity. Well, the fact that Khan is bringing this at this time, it's something like what I was saying, that we're not looking in areas where we need to touch. We need to, touch light some areas of importance. Leah Sharibu has been in captivity for a very long time.
Yes, close to 6 years now.
Yes, very long time. And our governors are talking about cash crisis. It's saddening, really saddening.
Well,
but above the nameplates, Buhari, Jonathan, others became president unprepared. You see, this statement is very troubling. I understand Jonathan, completing the Yaradua tenure. That's the first time. But he contested a second time.
And won.
That does not show unpreparedness. You have to prepare for an election, isn't it?
Yes.
You campaign, you rally people around, you rally voters.
You have an agenda.
Yeah, exactly. And you even make bogus promises. That's not unpreparedness. Except you're just going there to... You can't just be unprepared for the highest office in the... No. You don't tell me that all these people became Buhari.
Well, we could say for Buhari that he probably... I wouldn't say he wasn't prepared. I would say that he did not understand the rigors of the office. He did not understand that times have changed from the military era. I mean, some of the policies we are seeing now came up in the
You
1980s.
do know that that's still not an excuse.
No, it's not. I don't think Bishop Matthew Kukah is making an excuse for them. I think he's just saying that these men don't even know what they were doing in the first place. They appear to be clueless. You know, and it is true. I think it's true that maybe, just maybe, they didn't expect what they met on ground. But that's the hallmark of a leader. You don't work with what you can see alone. You work with potential challenges, potential bottlenecks that you can find, because it's not going to be an easy ride. So if you're in office and then all of a sudden you can't, I mean, our president was petroleum minister for 8 years. We never saw anything change. There was no change.
Positive change.
At all. We didn't see anything. So you wonder what, he said that he wants to work with the people that he trusts. In security became worse to the point where his own personal guard brigade, they were attacked, to the point where the National Defense Academy was attacked.
Yes.
I mean, it has never happened before. So Bishop Kukah may have a point when he spoke about unpreparedness, and that may speak to the fact that they didn't expect. But then you have to do research.
I like that word you used, and I think we should replace that. Buhari, Jonathan, others became president clueless.
Clueless.
That's
oh,
important.
yes, clueless.
Yes. That would have been, you know, that
But you said it. You're using the word.
You used the word, I'm borrowing it.
No, I said maybe, you said clueless. So hashtag free to be done later in the year.
All right, stock investors lose 281 billion naira in 1 week. That's alarming.
That's
and
a bad
sad.
time for everybody.
Very sad. INEC to get poll allocation from CBN Tuesday. Just last week, INEC was saying there was no cash for election. But now they have to get poll allocation
will
Tuesday.
CBN
We'll see how.
Print money for INEC, or is it part of the money we don't have?
I think maybe CBN has their own plans. They've set aside money for INEC. Nobody's touching that. INEC gets their money Tuesday. Let's believe that. Tuesday,
okay, let's believe.
INEC to get full allocation. All right, just beside the nameplate and the last story on the Punch newspaper this morning, full queues may return as NNPCL depots run low, and this is worrisome too.
Yes.
And then it's going to cause another agitation in the polity, because it's 5 days
Yes.
to the election, but Punch is counting 6 days. I don't know how, but it's 5 days to the election, and NNPCL is saying that the depots
are running low. Well, that's sad. That's a sad one. I think that I don't want to align with the people who are being spiritual or diabolical, and I've said that Nigeria is probably under a spell. Maybe we've been hexed, we're cursed by some persons. But how do you explain a potpourri of problems, a plethora of problems at this point? Everything is happening. Stock investors are losing money.
We seem to
Everything's
almost
happening.
be engulfed by problems at this critical time.
I mean, it's really, if it's not the petrol, it's the cash. It's not the cash, it's the containers falling on people in Lagos, the unknown gunmen in
The
Southeast.
protests, the burning of banks.
May God help us if He chooses to help us. If we deserve the help, you know, if we do deserve it.
Well, that's all on the Punch newspaper this morning, Emmanuel.
All right, let's breeze through the Nation newspaper. The Nation newspaper would take that alongside the Daily Trust. But first on the Nation newspaper is just one headline you have there. APC governors to AGF, CBN obeys Supreme Court ruling. Vote for Tinubu, says Buhari. And that's on page 2 of the Nation. But we'll move from that to the Daily Trust newspaper. Let's check out the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The banner headline says, insecurity, credibility fears may affect voter turnout. That's talking about the February 25th election.
Yes.
Candidates eye Northwest 22 million votes, while previous elections recorded low turnout. That's experts. And security others to determine turnout as the Center for Democracy Development, CDD. And that's on page 4 of that story. I see insecurity, especially in the Southeast. I mean, just a few days ago, the Nigerian Army killed about 7 IPOB members or ESN members that were trying to enforce a sit-at-home and no election, you know, order by Simon Ekpa. And that's really worrisome. There was a video I saw of people setting up, I think they were to do an election sensitization thing, and they had set up, and these men came with guns and all of that, you know, asked them to lie down on the ground, destroyed, burnt the woman. I don't know how she's going to recover. She's into decoration, burnt everything she brought, all of the things she brought to decorate that venue. And do you expect someone like that to go out to vote on Saturday? She has seen, you know, Shege, as they call it in local parlance. She's seen Shege, so I don't think she'll come out to vote on Saturday. And there are people like that. Apart from the
see no
Southeast.
reason.
Yes.
Well, the family of that woman, the 70,000 naira, the woman
Yes.
that wasn't 70, that set herself in place. I don't see her family also
Going
coming
out to vote. Yes.
So we have people like that.
And then there's a fear of credibility to INEC's.
On the part of INEC.
Yes, it would have been manageable had that incident with Peter Obi not happened. It was shameful. It was unnecessary, and of course it will color the elections, like it or not. There's no amount of damage control you want to do. It's something that should not have happened. INEC should not be liking a partisan post. That will reduce people's belief in your ability to stay neutral. And coming from the fact that the person who made the comment aligns with the particular candidate. I mean, I don't know.
A lot of things.
A lot of things.
To say, I love the angle that Daily Trust is bringing today, you know, to the fear, you know, and the crisis in the country this particular period. It's not about the cash now or the fear. It's about insecurity and how it's going to affect, you know, turnout at elections, at the polls. But then I was also going to say that Nigerians need to, you know, make a lot of decisions, and has to be quick as well. And then the fact that INEC is having credibility issues too, because you have a new voting system that you've just introduced. And so far, Osun is a case that is not favorable to that.
Yes.
And you are still, you know, piling up, you know, all of these issues. Exactly. You should be looking for ways to elevate and not even compound your own, you know, situation, your own bad situation. So we have a lot of issues that need to be resolved within 5 days.
Yes, within 5 days. It's interesting to see how that will be, you know, resolved. At the bottom strip, race to Aso Rock, Atiku, 6th time lucky or last rodeo. Well, voters will answer that question on Saturday. But then, I mean, 6 times? Even Boo didn't do up to that, you know. But, I mean, I don't know. How do people, what really baffles me for people like this is how do you recoup the money you spent to come again, to try again? I know you're a businessman, but I mean, campaigns are costly.
Business? After 6 good times of trying, but this is the 6th time. And if it doesn't go well for him now, what happens?
How do you recoup that?
Billions.
That's why you see politicians struggle to get to power, because there's no other way to take back the money than to be in politics. It's one of the most lucrative jobs. Let me let the cat out of the bag a little. On the trends, they will be talking about one particular governor who bought a 2023 Escalade, 2023 model, fully armored, for about 66 million or thereabout. That state is one of the most impoverished states. It's one of the states where salaries are being owed, but the governor bought a 2023 vehicle. Anyway, away from that, the voters will answer that question about Atiku on the 25th.
We hope they answer right.
But still at the bottom strip of the Daily Trust newspaper, Naira swap, APC backs governors, ask Buhari to obey Supreme Court as a part of the meeting that Abdullahi Adamu, chairman of the APC, held with governors of the APC yesterday. Elections, Najatu, 44 others to monitor police officers' conduct as a woman who resigned from the PCC, Najatu Mohammed, the APC, you know, leveling some allegations against Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Below the nameplate, 5 days to go, our expectations from Buhari's successor, NSCIA. Navy pledges support to INEC in coastal areas. No Christian political party, says Khan. And my worry about the coastal areas has also, you know, given me some sleepless night. I don't work with INEC, but I wonder how they would go about
Navigate.
it. The issue of the waterways not being policed enough is although because of beavers, there may be less cases of ballot box snatching. I mean, you're wasting your time if you do that in the first place. But the safety of these people, is it guaranteed? With kidnapping on the rise and all of that,
Yes.
and the boats they'll be using, are they? I mean, it will be absurd if a boat just stops working in the middle of the sea of the river and they are stranded there. But let's hope that the Navy can also step in to ameliorate or allay some of these fears to keep INEC safe in the coastal
And the
areas.
fact that the NSCIA is saying our expectations from Buhari's successor, I mean, there are lots of expectations from whoever succeeds
Yes,
Buhari.
the person has a lot of mess
It's
to
not
clean up.
even an enviable position, if you
At the
ask me.
moment, yes.
Nobody's supposed, really, I mean, a person in his right mind, supposed to sit down again. Am I sure I still want to go for this? Because we have a lot of problems.
Yes, a lot.
But so, if all these people now across board, I mean, the 4 major candidates now, if they are not sure, if they are unprepared, there's a time to really withdraw.
Yes.
Yes, and let us streamline the votes to people who are prepared.
Yes,
So
yes.
because
It's time
it's
to do
really, this is not a time to gamble with the destiny of Nigeria and Nigerians.
There's a lot that needs to be done. The unity and integrity of the nation is on the table. The safety of citizens is on the table.
Really?
The economic, okay, let's say the physical safety, the economic security is also on the table.
Really?
Nigeria's position in the global politics is also on the table. A lot of things.
A lot of things
Nigeria
at
has
stake.
never been this divided.
No.
I mean, if it's not ethnicity, it's religion. I mean, Yoruba people, for instance, you say the Yoruba. Within the Yoruba people, there's still the I'm a Muslim, you're a Christian segregation. I mean, that's a particular tribe. So look at it on a national scale. The Igbos, there's so much anger at each other in this country, and whoever is coming has a lot of work to do to unify the country. Well, away from the countdown, but still talking election. Kwakwanso to APC governors, your loot now completely useless. That's on page 13 of the Daily Trust newspaper. You get to see what loot Kwakwanso is talking about. But it's part of the theories flying around, actually. And some of these governors have stocked up on old notes.
Of course, it's
and now they can
just
use
plain logic and common sense. If you're agitating so much about the fact that there is a money in circulation, and it's obvious that it's not in the interest of the people, then it's about something.
Yes.
And maybe Kwankwaso is just giving us
A tip of that.
yes.
Alrighty, per cash crisis, Buhari urges patience, reaffirms support for Tinubu. He made a video yesterday. I couldn't watch the video to the end because I was just appalled. I mean, we're not talking about campaigns now. You're still president till May 29th, and there is serious crisis in the country. I mean, he made a tweet. I'd like to read out that tweet. I think I still have it here. His tweet was, "I'm fully aware of the current hardship being faced as a result of some policies meant to bring overall improvement to the country. I'm appealing to you to exercise further patience as we take measures to ease these hardships. God willing, there is light at the end of the tunnel." So what if God doesn't will it? There will be no light? I mean, the way we sprinkle God and religion, it's, I mean, I don't know.
You see, I don't know what you people want. Buhari is out of the, was out, I don't know if he's back. Is out of the country, is reaching out to you, showing, sensitivity to your plights now, and you're still having an issue.
The plight that he put us in the first place.
Is showing sensitivity.
Anyway, my only concern is him saying that God willing there is light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't show that there is some certainty. It doesn't show that he is sure. He's saying if God wills it by the grace of God. I mean, God never fails, we know that. But what if, okay.
God always wants good.
Well, still on the Daily Trust, the last story there, Daily Trust economist, credible elections will boost confidence in the economy. But that's all on the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
All right, moving on quickly to The Guardian. Tinubu APC governors beg Buhari Malami to respect Supreme Court order. Now the rioters from Addis Ababa, Buhari calls for patience over Naira hardship. Banks not ready for 200 Naira payment as cash squeeze enters fourth week. ADI, don't reverse policy, expand cashless outlets. El-Rufai instructs Kaduna MDAs to accept old notes. Merchants mop up old 500 naira, 1000 naira notes. Increase minting of 100 naira. Other lower denominations, security experts urges CBN.
Quite a number of writers there, and all of them just worrisome. I saw the letter from El-Rufai to the MDAs yesterday. I saw the letter yesterday, and he was telling them to accept old notes, and there was some subtle threat sprinkled all over that letter yesterday. You know, literally stopped short of telling them that if you don't collect the money, you see what your eyes should not see. But it's just downside up for us at the moment. You don't have enough of the notes to replace the new ones, the old ones, and the old ones, you've collected them, you're still collecting them, you're not pumping them back into circulation. You know, that's really unfair. And from Addis Ababa, Buhari calls for patience. I know we read something on the Spring Trends last week about someone saying that Buhari will retire as a travel vlogger. You know, he open a YouTube channel. He's just always all over the place.
Yes.
And
but this time around, it's for an unavoidable cost.
Yes,
really.
but he's still traveling around.
All right, the bottom strip of the paper, we're moving down there. Atiku Tinubu Obi in last push to sway voters. That's to be expected these days. And the more of that story is on page 6 of The Guardian. 80% of PHCs non-functional as FG reneges and total rehabilitation plan. That's worrisome if 80% of our primary health cares are non-functional, and the FG is, you know, going back on what they've said, that's bad.
Very bad for us.
It's bad. That's on page 5. And I'm moving on quickly to the bottom, just below the nameplate. NIPC moves to improve national branding, FDI. That is on page 5. Nigeria lost $825 billion to graft in 23 years. Says CSO, another worrisome story on page 5. Shoyinka distances herself from fake quotes on social media on page 4. Again, Kaduna asks agencies to accept audits as lawmaker seeks El-Rufai's arrest.
That arrest is for second guessing the president. But away from The Guardian to Daily Independent, very busy newspaper this morning. So many headlines. Be patient. I know there's hardship. Buhari begs Nigerians, asks parents to warn wards against trouble on election day. Below that story, police kill 6 gunmen who attempted to burn station. On page 4, we didn't raid Tinubu's house. That's the EFCC. Find more on that story on page 29. 2023 election policing. PSC appoints coordinators, threatening sanctions against erring policemen. 40% crude oil losses due to measurement inaccuracies, not theft. That's coming from the NUPRC. And South Africa begins issuance of 10 years visa to Nigerian investors, aviation practitioners on page 7. Naira redesign. Serap sues Buhari over ban on old 500 naira, 1000 naira note. And El-Rufai asks ministries, departments, and agencies to accept payment in old, new naira notes. And just at the bottom, training of 381 AFSEC candidates is to fight terrorism, as Hadi Sirika there, the aviation minister. Above the nameplate, Naira swap policy, obey Supreme Court order, APC, NWC, governors urge Malami Emefiele. And 2023 elections don't disappoint Nigerians. NGE, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, urges INEC security agencies, asks journalists to be professional in coverage. Well, that's all on the newspaper review this morning. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll bring in our guests to discuss some of the things happening around Nigeria, in the country, and particularly within the ruling All Progressives Congress that seems to be going into the election with a divided house. To stay with us. All right, welcome back to the show. It's still Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. We've done the newspapers for you. Now it's time to go to our interview segment. We have our guests joining us live on Zoom this morning. Mr. Ahmed Mustafa is a member of the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress, APC, and a staunch supporter of its presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Mr. Mustafa.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
All right. So let's start by asking you, how has it been on the campaign trail so far? It's just 5 days to the election. How have the campaigns gone?
Well, it's gone pretty well as expected. In some areas, over exceeding expectations. So it's been a lot of work, but it's been work that was or that is duly wanted. You look at the outpouring of love and acceptance that we enjoyed across the country, and then it reminds you of why you do what you do on a daily basis.
All right, so let's come to your party now. I'll hand you over to Temi Tokwe. She seems to have something to ask.
Well, I just want to ask, taking a survey of Nigeria, what parts of Nigeria would you say has shown a large support for your presidential candidate, so far?
Well, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a Nigerian, and I do expect that he will get a large chunk of votes across the country. I cannot tell you specifically that he's going to get more votes from a particular part of the country because I think for the first time in a long time, Nigerians are having a president who is truly Nigerian on all accords. By every standard of measurement, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a complete Nigerian. And I expect that he will get votes from the nooks and crannies of this country. I can guarantee you that a lot of results of states will be shocking to quite a number of people when the results start pouring in on the 26th of February 2023.
All right, so let's come to your party now. Let's come back to the All Progressives Congress. Seems to be going into the election with a divided house. Some governors of your party very much aggrieved at some of the policies of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and those policies have been approved or given some sort of backing by the president. But let's start with what's happening within your party now. Are you satisfied, or are you worried about the fact that some of your governors are at loggerheads with the presidency?
I'm not worried at all. I think that state governors, irrespective of their parties, have a responsibility to the people that they govern. Sometimes in Nigeria, I think we over-politicize every issue, and that's exactly the case with this Naira redesign. Nigeria has 36 federating units, and each of those 36 federating units are governed by 36 governors, duly elected by the people in those states. And the governors have a responsibility first to protect the interests of the people who elected them and not the interests of the party. Interests of the people must come first. And these governors have shown wisdom in asking that the country obeys the Supreme Court stand on the matter. This matter is already in court, and the Supreme Court has, in its wisdom, asked that the status quo be maintained, which simply interprets to the new Naira and the old Naira coexisting at the same time until a ruling is made on the 22nd of February 2023 by the Supreme Court to decide whether this old note will no longer be legal tender or will remain legal tender. This government is just simply asking that the federal government obeys the Supreme Court stance on the matter. I don't think it's anything about the APC being fractured. And it's funny to see, but don't let anybody, since you not ask that question, I don't want to muddle up the issue. But that's just my sense that Nigerians need to learn to separate politics from governance. And this is what it is. There's politics on the one side, there is governance on the other side. The president and the governors are on the same page regarding who the party's candidate is and who Nigerians should vote for Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Yes, they disagree on the Naira redesign. Not the policy itself, again, it needs to be stressed. The implementation of that policy is where there are issues that the governors can see. And the governors are closer to the people. They can feel the inconvenience and the hardship that this policy implementation has created. And so this is why they are clamoring that the federal government adjust or tweak these issues in one or two ways.
All right, so last Thursday, after the president gave his own address on the national stage, a governor of Kaduna State, who has been in the news so far, you know, speaking about the cabal and all of that, gave his own press conference in Kaduna. I'm sure, I'm trying to see if my producers can get us that video of El-Rufai, you know, giving his own speech. We used it on Friday on the trends. But before we come back to that, I'd like to ask you, do you think that the governors right now are speaking on behalf of the people or for some ulterior motives? There are those who have said that during the ASU strike, the governors were nowhere to be found. The fuel scarcity, they weren't disunited. And that this could be because they've stocked up on old notes and are finding themselves in a precarious situation if the central bank decides to stick to, you know, its plan of not allowing the old notes to be legal tender.
These insinuations are absolutely laughable. It's funny how educated Nigerians will compare the situation with ASU with the Naira redesign policy. Let me quickly explain this. With ASU, the federal government was an impasse with a union. You know, so it wasn't solely dependent on the federal government. University for months. The universal union in charge of universities decided to embark on strike. And so the federal government kept negotiating with ASU on a constant basis to try and resolve issues and find a middle ground for universities to be reopened. That's different. In this case, the federal government is taking a sole decision to redesign the policy and to redesign the Naira. And the governors are not asking that Naira should not be redesigned. What they are asking for is that the implementation is faulty, and we can all see it. They're not asking for something that we can't see. Nigerians, every Nigerians are out on the streets, queuing at the ATMs, trying to get the money that they work hard to make. You know, I have people in my environment who are groaning under this policy implementation. I don't have a problem with the policy. I don't think the governor of Kaduna State or any other governor in this country has a problem with the policy, or any other Nigerian has a problem with the policy. Again, the question becomes, how effective has the implementation been? We need to remind you that the UK government is currently redesigning the UK pound sterling, and there are no issues because they're doing it the right way, allowing the old pounds, which carries the face of a queen, and the new one, which should carry the face of a king, to coexist until the banking system fully withdraws the old notes out of circulation. This is how best to do this. I don't understand why the CBN has taken this tough stance. And it's okay to take the tough stance. If you then find out that the stance you're taking is creating issues for Nigerians, you relax and readjust the processes. I don't think that the governors have an ulterior motive. It's funny because Nigerians have a belief that politicians have all the power. There are insinuations that politicians have stocked up the old note and the new notes, and that's why the new notes are not in circulation. These people are once saying that they still have old notes stacked up. If this policy was instituted in October, the politicians, if they indeed have stacked up the old notes, had 3 months to walk up to the banks and exchange their old notes for the new notes. You know, I don't think that's it at all, because you can clearly go on the streets of Osogbo and see the pain that this policy is creating for Nigerians. I don't think it's about the politicians. It makes absolutely no sense to think that. None whatsoever.
All right, Mr. Mustafa. So we'll take a listen now to Nasir El-Rufai's video, and then I'll come back to ask you about some of the decisions that the other governors have also taken on this matter.
Peaceful and support the lawful means being utilized to solve our problems. On behalf of the Kaduna State government, I wish to assure you that none of you would lose the money you have in old notes. Let no artificial or illegal deadline frighten you. Whether you live in towns, villages, or in isolated rural communities, do not feel stampeded to deposit your old notes into the banks. Hold on to them. Continue to use them as legal tender as ordered by the Supreme Court of Nigeria. No deadline can render them worthless, ever. The law is on your side. The Central Bank of Nigeria Act 2000.
All right, Mr. Mustafa, the things I want to ask you now are very simple. That's El-Rufai there, saying that no artificial or illegal deadline. I mean, the president gave a directive, and here is a governor coming up to say that residents should ignore that directive. And some of the APC governors, some of your APC governors, have also written open letters to their residents. In fact, as of yesterday, there was another letter from Nasir El-Rufai asking MDAs to accept the old notes. Is this what your party should be dealing with at this time? President giving a directive and state governors going out to say ignore the president's directive.
Well, if you listen to Governor El-Rufai in his speech, he did mention that the law is on the side of the citizens. And this is my key takeaway from that. It's not a renegade idea. It's not as if the president gave an instruction and then the governor decided to go against it. He's standing with the ruling of the Supreme Court. Nigerians must understand that there are separations of power in this country. So a case is in court. The president or anybody at all should not be speaking on that matter, since the matter is in front of a court of competent jurisdiction in this country. The Supreme Court should have been allowed to make its pronouncement on the matter, and then all Nigerians will follow suit. Right now, there is confusion. Nigerians don't know if they should follow the directive of the Supreme Court or follow the directive of Mr. President. I think the president and his advisors have got this one wrong, because this is clearly going against the ruling of court, the highest court in the land. If it was an appellate court, maybe they are looking to appeal, and even if they are looking to appeal the matter, you shouldn't be giving a decision that is contrary to what the court's the stance of a court on a particular issue. So I think that on this matter, the law clearly is not to everybody is clearly standing on the side of the law. If we're supposed to take it as it is, and I'm surprised that more governors in opposition are not taking this position. They are allowing their people to suffer, knowing fully well the implications of this, but they are deciding to do this for political reasons. It appears as though there's been a bit of shift in the paradigm, because just yesterday, the presidential candidate of the PDP made an open address asking that this policy will also be relaxed. So this is him finally saying what the are saying all the while. The president, and he shouldn't be strong. There's need for change. We can all clearly see that there's need for this policy implementation to be adjusted in one or two ways. Okay, the president has made some concessions, asking that the old bring into separation. This is him telling us clearly that some things were implementation in terms of implementation, some things were clearly gotten wrong. So we're just asking that this leeway be extended a little bit more. It's not rocket science. You can go on the street and just check what these governors are saying. And the biggest issue here is that they have the backing of the highest court in the land. The question you ask, if this is what the governors should be dealing with at this time, governance never stops, it continues. And this is good for our nascent democracy. Why do I say this? Nigeria is we're part of the federational system of government. So it is critical for state governors to have the boldness and the audacity to challenge the federal government on issues so long as the law is on their side. Lagos State government was notorious for doing this under the Obasanjo administration, but it was seen as the Lagos State government fighting an opposition PDP government. It is unusual for us to see this kind of politics or this kind of governance system in Nigeria, where members of the same party go against each other for national good. I think we are finally getting to a point in Nigeria where party politics is taking the back burner and governance is taking the lead, and it is the best thing that can ever happen to our country. All of us, of course, what you have had would have the APC governors remaining quiet and going with the flow of the president, whether he's right or not on this matter. They have just backed him up because they are members of the same party. But for them to have gone against him openly says that these people are putting the interests of their people first ahead of that of the party. And that is how I think it should be done.
All right, Mr. Mustafa, let's be clear. Do you think that shortly after the president made his speech, and then Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna also gave a speech that is, directly contradicting what the president said, do you think, and you've also alluded to the fact that the people are obviously confused, they don't know if to turn here or there, do you think that it is fair that the sitting governor in Kaduna should have further plunged the people into confusion?
Well, I think the president should have been able to say that this is what the governor said. But the president, in his speech, did mention that the law is on the side of the citizens. And this is my key takeaway from that. let's be clear, Governor Faye didn't launch the people into confusion. The president's speech did that because the people had decided.
The president's speech was clear. He asked that 200 naira notes, the old notes, should be returned into circulation.
That's not the position of the Supreme Court. So the people are asking, should they follow the decision of the Supreme Court or should they follow the president's lead? The president contradicted the Supreme Court. That's what created this confusion in the first place. You know, the president should have waited until the 22nd when the Supreme Court ruled on the matter. That case was adjourned to the 22nd. You know, he should, in my wisdom, I think the president should have waited until the Supreme Court ruled on the matter before he then takes a position on it. Because him coming out now to contradict the position of the Supreme Court, which says that the status quo should be maintained, meaning that old and new naira notes should continue to remain legal. And that's what created this confusion. As for Kaduna State and its residents, they would abide by the ruling of the Supreme Court, which I think they have a right to do, giving Nigerians a rule of law.
All right. Is it good for optics that the president and the governors are on different pages at this time? Is it good?
No, absolutely it's not. For politics, for political optics, it's not. It doesn't make good reading. We cannot deceive ourselves about that. That Nigeria has to learn political governance ahead of political optics. Everything, it is not. We don't have to put cosmetics, put makeup on all of our problems and crack over and paper over those cracks. That needs to be addressed. And so the governors have taken a stand. They were the ones who took this matter to court in the first place, having seen the hardship that this issue was creating. And so they have a right to stand by the judgment that they got in court. It would be extra down, seeing that the law is on their side, simply because the president came out and contradicted the Supreme Court.
All right, Mr. Mustafa, I'd like to ask you again. We're hitting the home stretch now on the election. It's just 5 days. On the 23rd, campaigns will end. This issue, do you see it hurting your party? I mean, people are frustrated, and it seems that the APC is at the center of it all. The policy coming out in the first place, the president coming out to say that he gave approval for that policy, and then the uncertainty surrounding it. Do you think that this will hurt your party on the 25th?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I think it would have, and it still might, but not to the extent to which people expected that it would, or people have anticipated that it would. I think the government's taking a stand has somewhat cushioned the effect of how drastic a pull this policy would have had on the outcomes of the election. The people can clearly see that the APC governors are standing with them in their plight, and I think that would be duly rewarded at the polls. Let me be clear. I don't think the president is doing this out of a misguided ambition to see the party lose. I think the intention of the president regarding this narrow redesign are noble, and I support it. Again, the problem is that the implementation process, which is not the function of the president, by the way, was clearly brought up by those who were in charge of implementing that policy.
Okay, so do you also agree with Ajuri Ngelale that the president was misinformed?
The top question of how we got here as a country.
Mr. Mustafa, do you agree with the SSA to the president on media, Ajuri Ngelale, that he was misinformed? Festus Keyamo has come out to toe that line to say the president may not have been given the true picture concerning this policy. Do you agree with that?
Yes, if I don't work for the president, I don't speak for him. If those who work with him and meet him every day have said this, it's not impossible that some people. I was on this station a while ago, and I did say that there are mischief makers within the presidency who are actively political opposition. It's not impossible to fathom the fact that these people will have fed wrong intel to the president on the implementation process and how successful it has been. The CBN said that the naira circulation is about 2.6 trillion, I think. I'm not exactly sure of those figures. And the new naira notes that were printed are only 400 billion. I might not get those figures right, so but it just shows a stark contrast in the amount of money being withdrawn from circulation, amount of money being pumped back, and this explains clearly why we are at the current state that we are as a nation. I think the CBN governor did come up to say, or I read somewhere in the news that there is a delay from the imposition of papers needed for the printing of new naira notes. All of this points to the fact that I don't think the president would have been aware of this from the get-go and still stuck with the president. But sometimes you have an agenda, you have a plan, and you want to see it through. And so I don't blame the president for wanting to see this through, because this, ultimately, what this does is that it gives Nigerians a belief in the electoral process, because vote buying has been a major part of our electoral system. This naira redesign solves that problem, but at the end of the hardship for Nigerians. That's not the way it should have been. I think if the process was smooth and well implemented, nobody will not be facing these issues at all. So it's not beyond these mischief makers to have misinformed the president on the road to doing things on ground as it concerns the naira redesign. I wouldn't put it past them.
All right. So as we let you go, I'd like to ask: do you see any possible shifts further beyond April 10th that the president announced on Thursday?
Well, that depends on what the Supreme Court decides on the 22nd, and how the president decides to react to that. If he would then decide to toe the line of the rule of law and abide by the ruling of the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court rules that those naira notes become no longer legal tenders, I'm sure that these governors who have gone to court would step down on this matter and agree with the president on this issue. And I would, as a Nigerian, I am hoping and praying that there's further extension on the deadline, because from what I can see, the pressure on the naira, on people to get the naira note, is not easing up anytime soon. It's not. What this policy has done in retrospect is that it has created some kind of distrust in the banking system in Nigeria. Nigerians have over time trusted their banks, but this difficulty in getting their money out of the banking system will make it difficult for the unbanked to even begin to make the shift towards getting back. So it's going to there's going to be ripple effect from this. I do not think that the 10th of April deadline will suffice in this case. I'm hoping and praying that the president listens to this interview and does what I think is the right thing by extending the deadline.
All right, thank you so much. We'd like to thank you for spending time with us on the show this morning. Your party, the APC, has now aligned with governors after yesterday's meeting between the national chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, and the governors, and they've taken a position on the naira policy. And I would have asked you what that means now that the party itself has taken a different path, from the president. But you seem to have spoken on that in the course of answering our questions.
No, I can very easily tell you that's the party. The party is not the presidency. Buhari is not the president of APC, he's the president of Nigeria. And the party has a right to side with either the president or with the governors. But they have decided to side with common sense and with ordinary Nigerians on the street who are crumbling under this pressure, and also side with the Supreme Court. So I give them kudos for that. But I think the president should and would see reason to further relax this deadline and stick to the Supreme Court judgment.
All right, thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning. Mr. Ahmed Mustafa is a member of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council. Do well to stay safe. We wish you the rest of the day. Have a wonderful Monday and have a wonderful week ahead.
Thank you very much for having me. Cheers now. Bye, guys.
All right, we've let go of Mr. Ahmed Mustafa. He seems to be toeing the path of his party. The party now, the APC, has said that they would take the stand of the governors, asking the president and Minister of Justice, Attorney General of the Federation, Malami, to
respect.
Respect the Supreme Court order. And well, that's his own position. That's Mr. Mustafa's position. And he seems to think that the governors are fighting for the people. Of course, you wouldn't expect him, to say that they're fighting. So we'll be taking our second guest shortly. He's a legal practitioner who will be helping us make sense of the constitutional and legal implication of the back and forth between the president and, of course, the governors right now in Nigeria. There seems to be some sort of clashes, some sort of misunderstanding and confusion, like Mr. Mustafa said. So we'll take our guest after this break to stay with us. All right, welcome back to the show. Morning Spring on Western Spring Television is what you're still watching. And we've been discussing the Naira swap policy as it affects Nigerians, but we've looked at the party angle to it, the APC, and the seeming civil war or internal crisis, if you like to put it that way. We're now joined by a legal practitioner from Abuja. Prince Ademola Oyedeokun joins us live via Zoom this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Prince Oyedeokun.
Thank you, Western Spring Television. Thank you, Nigerians. Good morning, everybody.
All right, now let's look at what happened last Thursday. But first of all, let's start from the Supreme Court itself. Can you help us make sense of the order or the ruling of the Supreme Court and what it actually means in terms of the new Naira notes deadline?
Supreme Court is what it is. It's the highest court of this country, and it is generally known for its appellate jurisdiction. That is the court of last resort. When you go from High Court, Court of Appeal, and you are still dissatisfied, or any party is dissatisfied, you go to Supreme Court. And whatever the Supreme Court says, that ends it, except you appeal to God. And that is between you and God. Supreme Court is supreme, and they don't make mistake. They don't make mistake because they are final. Whatever they say is correct, no matter how incorrect it looks to ordinary man on the street. And in this case, they have what we call original jurisdiction, which is vested into them by the Constitution. Whenever there is a dispute between a state and the Federation, then the case will start from Supreme Court. It will not go through the long road of Federal High Court to Court of Appeal before it comes to Supreme Court. It goes to Supreme Court straight. And every rules that applies in the High Court, when the Supreme Court is exercising its original jurisdiction, that is, when it is acting as the court of first instance, applies. So every court under Section 6 of Section 6A, every court established under that part of the Constitution has what we call inherent power. And one of such inherent power is the power to preserve the status quo. When two parties to a dispute come before court, the court can give an interim order, even when the other party has not been heard. Let both parties maintain the status quo. Let this position remain pending the determination of the case. Notwithstanding that the case before the court of Supreme Court has not been heard on merit, the merit or otherwise of each party's case has not been determined. The Supreme Court, in its wisdom, granted Kogi, Zamfara, and Kaduna states interim order against the federal government of Nigeria, which order is to put on hold the implementation of the cash redesign policy as it affects the exchange or swapping of old Naira notes for the new one. And for whatever it is, that order must be obeyed. The greatest danger or the worst violence that can happen to democracy is disobedience of court order. If it is done by the common man on the street, appropriate punishment by way of contempt, finding the person guilty of the contempt will be meted to the person, and the person will be duly punished. So the least person that is expected to flout court order are government institutions or head of government themselves. So it is expected that the federal government will respect the rule of law and obey the Supreme Court's decision. Because not doing so portends a great danger for our democracy. It has a very long, far-reaching effect. Even foreign investors will be afraid of investing in Nigeria If when you come to Nigeria as an investor, you establish a business and there is a dispute between you and the government of that country, and the government of that country does not respect its own court or its own law, that means your investment is not safe. And disrespect to court order can also lead to anarchy. That is why disrespect to court order is the greatest danger to democracy. Rule of law is the backbone of democracy. Take away the rule of law, what you have is rule of anarchy. And the human society will become the community of wild animals, where we have the survival of the fittest. We shouldn't allow that to happen. So it is greatly appalling when I listen to the speech of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, where the President made specific reference to the Supreme Court when he said, "I'm aware of some decision of the judiciary of the Supreme Court," and still went ahead and made executive order, that it is only 200 naira notes that should be returned back to circulation, and that 1,000 naira and 500 naira notes, that is not in compliance with the interim order of the Supreme Court.
All right.
And it is appalling.
All right.
It's unacceptable. It is condemnable.
Okay.
It's undemocratic.
So, Prince Oyedeokun, are you saying clearly now that the president has committed contempt of the judiciary?
In my own humble view, that is what has happened. Because if the Supreme Court says, reverse this pending the time we determine the merits of the case that has been brought before us, it's unambiguous. The order of the Supreme
Okay, we seem to be having technical issues with Prince Oyedeokun this morning, but he's saying some very interesting things.
Yes.
That the president has committed contempt
And my next
of
question
judiciary.
will be, what does that mean for the president?
Yes.
What is going to happen?
What would the Supreme Court
sanctions would the
do?
Supreme
Yes.
Court take?
Oh, well.
You know.
Court
Interestingly,
is unambiguous. It is
okay.
straightforward. Know that it's a slap on democracy. They say that all person and authority must respect and enforce the decision of the Supreme Court. It is a constitutional breach, and honestly, in a very strong.
I think he was just about to mention what would have happened in a very strong democracy. Oh, I don't know. Some persons have been committed to prison in the past. The IGP, the EFCC chairman, have been ordered to be committed to prison for contempt. So it will be interesting to see if the Supreme Court has the power to do that. I would like to see, because this seems to be a constitutional crisis, a conflict of powers. The executive, pushing aside the judiciary, and the judiciary seemingly taking it lying low. I would expect that something has to be done.
Of course.
To serve as deterrent, don't you think?
I'm also, I'm confused too, I should say, as to what will happen. I mean, if can the Supreme Court order the arrest of the president? Can it, will it be impeachment instead? I mean, what are the dynamics of this? Because it's something we really need to get to know and be prepared ahead.
And there's also the issue of the governors. Some persons have said that what they did is treasonable felony. It's a treason.
Yes, I was going to also ask, on the face of the Guardian, a particular lawmaker was seeking the arrest of Governor El-Rufai.
Yes.
I also want to know, if that can happen, and why it should even happen. I think it says something about these governors, some 3 governors, I think Kaduna and some others, seeking government order, to enforce what the Supreme Court has said, to keep spending the old notes.
Okay, so welcome back to the show, Prince Oyedeokun. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. So we were just talking about some of the things. Now take us through the dynamics. Temitope wants to know. I also want to know. Everybody wants to know. What options are available to the Supreme Court? You have just said that the president has committed contempt of the judiciary.
Yes.
So what does it mean? What does it mean for the democracy? What normally would the Supreme Court do to anyone who commits contempt? Will the president be arrested? Can that happen?
This is what happens. The court is the judiciary is a very powerful institution. And And as it is, judiciary doesn't invite cases. The courts sit down there waiting for litigants to come. The courts don't go around begging for cases. The case between the various states that instituted the action and those that have joined, it is left for them to report back to the court to say, my lords, your orders have not been obeyed. The court cannot on its own, the court cannot suo motu perceive it from the air and say, they can't just do that. The Supreme Court can do nothing unless and until those people who feel aggrieved, especially parties to the case, the relevant states who are in the proceeding, they are the one to initiate the proceeding, because everything in the court is done by process and proceedings. So it is left for those states, the parties to the case, to inform formally the Supreme Court and commence what we call contempt proceeding, if they wish to so do. But what I have seen is not for those states to have taken such legal remedy. They themselves, they have resorted to what I would call another constitutional rascality. Yes, the speech read by the president may be contemptuous of the order of Supreme Court that is in the public knowledge, but it is not also for those states to take laws into their hand by giving counter speeches, counter directive that is driving us towards anarchy. It would have been the best for them if they instruct their lawyers to commence contempt proceedings against the office of Mr. President. It would have been better that way. And then, if the president will raise the issue of immunity, that he cannot be personally punished for that, then the impeachment proceeding is there. You cause the National Assembly to initiate impeachment proceeding against the president, having violated Section 286 and 287 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which says every person and authority must obey the decision of the Supreme Court.
All right, Mr.
So the court on its own cannot feel aggrieved. It's an unbiased umpire. Supreme Court is an unbiased umpire, and even if they know, they don't know that their orders have been breached unless it is reported to them officially, and the legal process is set in motion by concerned plaintiffs in the case.
All right,
There's nothing the Supreme Court can do.
Prince, if these parties to the case do not go back to the Supreme Court, so you are saying that the Supreme Court will just, overlook what has just happened. And another question is, these governors that have gone ahead to give another, order to their citizens, are you saying that, I want to know if it's a treasonable offense by law?
As for me, I don't know what makes it treasonable there. When there are various types of treasonable, but when we say treasonable felony is as known in Nigeria, is offense of an attempt to forcefully take over the government of the federation or any part thereof, or an attempt to kill the governor, deputy governor, president, or vice president. So those who call these speeches by governors as treasonable felony, I don't know how they intend to prove that. I don't see those speeches as an attempt to take over the parts of the federation other than through constitutional means.
All right. Does it not undermine the position of the president, and does it not incite residents against the president? Did you get me, Prince?
I don't understand. I don't get that.
Okay, I'm saying, do their directives not undermine the position of the president, and does it not incite the public against the president? Is that not enough?
If you want to accuse those governors of incitement or sedition,
we seem to be having another sort of network issues. They was trying to make a clarification between treason and sedition and incitement. I think that it may be incitement, which is also, for me, I'm not a legal expert, but I think that when you incite people against the government, it could go really wrong. It could be hijacked. people can use it to spread,
Total anarchy.
different messages. But I'm interested to see that now, at least I'm getting to know that the Supreme Court can't just act on
Yes, on
content
the
like that.
term.
Someone has to tell the Supreme Court.
It probably explains the fact that, the reason why the Supreme Court has not said any other thing after that, after the president's speech.
Well,
I also want to know if this lawmaker that is seeking El-Rufai's arrest is on the right path, and what are the grounds for which he can seek the arrest of El-Rufai.
All right, Prince Oyedeokun, are you back?
Yes, I'm on.
Okay, so
we lost you along the line.
yes,
there.
we're trying to ask you for your clarification. You were talking about incitement and sedition.
Yes, I was saying that the people who are terming the speeches of the governors as treasonable felony, I don't see how they tend to prove that. Have not attempted to take over the government of the federation other than through constitutional means. They have not done that. I say that their speeches are seditious. It tends to incite people against the government. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear
Yes,
you.
we
Is
can hear
that
you.
enough now to also initiate
To
proceedings
incite
against them?
people against the government. They have not carried arm against the government or against the government of the federation or any part of thereof. So it is not reasonable for Nolan. At most, it could be said to be seditious. And I said, we should not forget the political aspect of the whole saga.
Okay,
The
so
election is around the corner. A lot of conspiracy theories are going on. And all these people doing these things, they all know that they all have immunities. The president who is doing this, the president who is risking impeachment for flouting Supreme Court order, knows that his own days are also numbered. So these are all variables that inform their reckless decisions that are causing constitutional embarrassments to our polity.
well, you've spoken about.
They have immunities and that their days are numbered.
Yes, you've spoken about the president's own mistake. Before I hand you over to Tomitokwe, what will be the punishment, the punitive measure for sedition, if that were to be the case of the governors?
Sedition, I'm not so sure, because even the legality of the word sedition too is called to question. Because when you consider sedition, this is a freedom of expression as guaranteed by the Constitution. I'm not so sure, professionally speaking. I don't want to goof. I'm on here. Whether the law of sedition is still a good law in Nigeria, that you kill people for expressing their view or you send them to life imprisonment. The word sedition itself seems to be, if my memory is not failing me, to be law known to military government to silence people who express opinion against their junta and dictatorial tendency. But I know the punishment for sedition is actually a capital punishment or life imprisonment. I'm not very sure at this point.
All right, Prince, I don't think we can actually term El-Rufai's speech, his own speech, as an opinion. It was really like a directive to his citizens. But then let's move away from that to the fact that a particular lawmaker now is seeking El-Rufai's arrest. I want to know,
yes, you said his speech is a specific directive to his citizens.
Yes, to his citizens. It
and then if you ask El-Rufai will tell you that he is acting based on the subsisting decision of the Supreme Court. Will you then say he's wrong?
So who is wrong here? Who is wrong? Now let's ask you straightforward. Who is wrong here? Is it the president who is flouting the Supreme Court order, or the governors who are undermining the president?
Authority. And that is true. Will you then say El-Rufai is wrong?
Yes. Okay. So let us say the president is wrong and El-Rufai is wrong. Okay, the president is wrong. Should El-Rufai have furthered on the wrong of the president by giving a counter directive to what the president has said?
He has done or he has not done. This twilight of his administration is really taking him back to the dark side of historical book. No Nigerian will forget these days. The hardship people are going through because of this policy that is not well thought out, no matter how laudable it is. It's traumatic. It's crushing. And honestly, a good government will listen to the cries of our citizens. Saying this policy has helped us to stem down the tide of kidnapping who are unable to collect ransom. It has helped us to stem down the possible food buying. It has helped us to curb corruption to a reasonable extent. These are good intentions. But what feasibility study did you put in place? How religious have you followed those plans to ensure that common man on the streets are not hurt? The common man on the street have always been the victims of politicians who are corrupt. Common man on the street have always been the victims of the politicians who are buying votes. The common man on the street has always been the one that are the victims of the kidnappers, and yet you make them the victim of the very policy you put in place to help them. The pain is unbearable. The pain for the common man is unbearable. And the policy needs to be revisited. Even if it will be sustained, it should be redesigned and fully implemented in a way that it will not work harshly on the common man on the streets.
All right, I was going to ask that a certain lawmaker is seeking the arrest of Governor El-Rufai. I want to know if this is possible, with the immunity that he's enjoying with his office, and on what grounds can he be arrested?
Well, the Supreme Court is clear on the extent of the privilege given to state executives and federal executives, the governor and the deputy governors, the governors and deputy governors, the president and the vice president. Their immunity does not protect them from investigation. If a governor is suspected to have committed a crime, his immunity is to prevent him from being prosecuted in court. He may be investigated. A governor may be invited for investigation. If he has no skeleton in his cupboard, he will go. Governor Ifayose did that before the expiration of his tenure in office. He visited EFCC. They investigated him. If you are investigated as a governor, you honor invitation. And if you have no skeleton in your cupboard, you honor invitation. If after investigation nothing is found against you, at the expiration of your tenure, nobody will prosecute you. But you can be investigated. You can be investigated whether you have done something wrong or not. And your prosecution will be deferred till the end of your tenure when you no longer have immunity. A governor is protected from prosecution, either in civil or criminal cases. But they are not protected from being investigated. Does arrest include investigation? I will say no. Arrest is an act. It's after arrest that you can investigate. But whether a police officer will arrest a governor, this is Nigeria. I don't think that is going to happen.
All right.
So that's not making a comedian.
All right. Thank you so much, Prince Oyedeokun. Prince Ademola Oyedeokun joined us live from Abuja, where he's been speaking to us about the constitutional crisis, seeming constitutional crisis caused by the different positions of the governors and the president on the Naira cash policy. Thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning on the show. We do hope that you stay safe and have a lovely Monday.
Thank you very much, Western Spring Television. It's my pleasure. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. Well, there it is. You've heard a legal angle to some of these issues. It remains to be seen if the governors will go report the president to the Supreme Court and what the Supreme Court will do from there. But before we go on the show this morning, I'd like to bring you some news that's coming out from the Vanguard newspaper this morning. If you recall, on Friday, the Association of Senior Staff of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institutions told some of their workers in banks where branches have been attacked across the state to stay off work. They were going to start a strike today to protest the hazardous, working conditions that their workers have found themselves. But as of yesterday, the association has called off that plan to commence strike. So all bank staff will now go to banks, according to the president of the association, Olusoji Oluwole. Says they've gotten assurance that their safety and security will be guaranteed, and that security operatives will ensure that they deploy more operatives to assets of banks across the nation. I think that's a good one to ease the already existing crisis, the already existing difficulty caused by the cash.
And just like it is on the Punch that the bank CEOs want old notes collection extended to avert protests and attacks on branches. So it still shows that the CEOs, as well as this ASBEF, they're all, talking on, one. Yes.
Well, we hope that the president and the presidency does get on board on the same page. Well, that's the interview segment of Morning Spring this morning. I'll be coming back to tell you what's happening, especially in Lagos and Ogun State and in Kogi State. And then Temitope.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us on the show this morning. I am Temitope Ajijala Oluwaola. And as Emmanuel has reiterated on the show this morning, please stay safe out there.